But I want to tell you something. I am so proud of the American people who saw through all that gaslighting and picked Donald Trump as president. Now, the people showed that they were tired of the lawfare and the crime and the illegal immigration and the class warfare and the child abuse and men playing in women's sports and going in women's locker rooms. Just crazy stuff. You know, I was in Europe and I was talking to a bunch of the Europeans about America. And I said, what do you think about America these days? And the resounding answer I got was, we think you lost your minds. Now, if the Europeans think that, we are really in trouble. But it's time for a correction, and I think that correction is occurring. And you know, it was saddening for so many of us when Trump lost in 2020. Somebody said he didn't lose, but here's the point. If he had won, he would be coming to the end of his second term right now. Now they got to deal with him for another 4 years. That should teach them. But, you know, sometimes a failure is a setup for success. You know, I remember some years ago, I was asked urgently to come to South Africa to help perform a separation of a set of conjoined twins. They were joined at the back of the head, just like the first set from Germany. And, but the place where it was being done, Medunsa, was not a place that had all the modern equipment and all the kinds of things that you would have in a tertiary medical center. But people were donating very sophisticated equipment from all over the world. And we were able to put together an amazing team in a place like that to carry out what would be a very complex operative procedure. And it involved hypothermic arrest, where we would cool the body temperature, pump all the blood out, stop the hearts. You could do that for up to an hour without loss of function. But when we got to that part of the operation and the cardiothoracic surgeons opened the chest, one of the babies had a heart that was non-functional. And the reason that they had been deteriorating, which is why they needed to get this operation done so quickly, they weren't sure why the babies were deteriorating. It was because the one was doing all the pumping for both of them. So as they were growing, they were going into congestive heart failure. And obviously, we completed the operation. The one with no heart function was dead. But the other one was actually doing okay, and we were pleased with that. Except that the next day, that one started having a lot of seizures and all kinds of metabolic problems. And over the 48-hour period, died. Well, it turned out that that one had no kidney function because the other one had the kidney function. So one had the heart function, one had the kidney function. They were symbiotic. They couldn't live apart. They couldn't live together. And I must admit, on my way back home, I was devastated. I was just devastated. I'm not used to things not going well. I would say anybody could fail. I didn't have to come all the way over here from America in order to fail. But 2 years later, there was another case from Zambia, twins that were joined at the top of the head, facing in opposite directions, something we call type 2 vertical craniopicus. There had been 13 attempts to separate twins like that historically, none of which had been successful. So we studied the case extensively. And when I went to do that case, I was so thrilled. Over the operating room, there was a sign that said, "God bless Joseph and Luca Banda." They were having prayer service and song service. I asked them to bring a stereo system into the operating room because I love to listen to music while I'm operating. 19 hours into the surgery, we were only 3/4 of the way finished. The part that remained was so complex. There were blood vessels going in every direction. It looked like a bowl of spaghetti, and you have to try to separate them. Well, we stopped the operation. I said, maybe what we can do is cover it over with skin, leave them joined, come back in a few months, the vessels will have delineated themselves, and then we can complete the separation. And the doctors from Zambia and South Africa said, that's a great idea. And I know it would work at Johns Hopkins. But we can't keep a partially separated set of twins alive. They'll die. Now I really felt the weight of the world on my shoulders. I didn't have all my fancy equipment that I have at Hopkins. I had my scalpel, my surgical loops, and a prayer on my lips. And I went in and said, Lord, it's up to you. And over the next several hours, I was intensely operating. I honestly don't even remember what I did. But later on, the other neurosurgeon said, we couldn't believe what you were doing. But when we made the final cut that separated those twins, over the stereo system came the Hallelujah chorus. And everybody had goosebumps. And when we finished the operation, one of the twins opened his eyes, reached up for the endotracheal tube. By the time we got to the ICU, the other one did the same thing. Within 2 days, they were extubated. Within 3 days, they were eating. Within 2 weeks, they were crawling. And today, they are normal adults doing well. But here's the thing. That second operation would not have been possible without all the equipment and the teams that had been put together for the first operation where the twins were not viable. And this is the same kind of thing that just happened. If Donald Trump had won in 2020, we would have had a problem. We would have had to continue to deal with the COVID and all kinds of things, and things would not have been accomplished, and he would have been blamed for everything under the sun. That didn't happen. People were able to see side by side the conservative philosophy versus the progressive philosophy, and what kind of lives they lead for people. That was a tremendous blessing, and that was God's way of helping us to see who we were